Ah yes, the Tinder episode, in which Marvel reminds us of two very important facts. The first is that dating is hard for everyone, and the second is that this show has no real plot points and it's not gonna matter when it's over. Hi y'all, Snarky J Cosplay here. Episode 4 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law is officially out today, and what I can tell you is that you're way better off spending your time watching literally any other Disney Plus Day release. Literally anything else. I give this episode a sort of generous 4 out of 10. While it's slightly less terrible than last week's, every new character introduced is more one-dimensional than the last, the jokes are both not funny and also super repetitive, and the dialogue and one-liners often feel like they've been pulled from old Tumblr posts. And worst of all, every single episode of this show basically feels like a tremendous waste of time. In 4 episodes, they've failed to build an overarching plot. They tease little plot points at the end of almost every episode, and yet they don't go anywhere the next time around. It feels very much like a sitcom rather than a show you should follow week to week, and it's not even a good sitcom at that. It's like every episode every week is just filler. Like I said, I rate this episode a 4 out of 10, and that is all I can say without giving too much away. So, with that being said, let's get into it. From this point forward, there will be spoilers for episode 4 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. You've been warned. This episode opens on a magic show in which a mustachioed Chris Angel wannabe is doing a pretty poor job of keeping his audience entertained. Frustrated, the magician, who we learn goes by Donnie Blaze, calls on a volunteer. It's here that we are introduced to the scourge of this episode, a perpetually tipsy party girl by the name of Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y, but it's not where you think. Her involvement in the magic trick falls equally flat, and it's not until he sends her through a portal to God knows where that the audience actually erupts in applause. To open this portal, of course, he's using a sling ring, much like Doctor Strange and his disciples use. In Nepal, as Wong is settling in for a quiet evening of watching The Sopranos, Madison appears through a portal. She explains that she was initially sent to a dimension, which is different dimension, shortened in a way that no real functioning human being would ever say. So naturally, Wong is upset that Donnie Blaze is sending random people into random dimensions. And his second reason for being upset, as if Madison wasn't annoying enough, she also spoils The Sopranos for him, which is a problem. Back in Jen's apartment, we get another cheeky little fourth wall break, where she makes a joke about how having Wong in the episode gives the show Twitter armor for a week. You know what would be even better Twitter armor? Writing a show that doesn't suck. Anyways, her dad shows up wanting to make her apartment safer after she was assaulted by the wrecking crew in the last episode. However, she reassures him that she's a Hulk, she can handle it, and with that, she heads into work. While she is setting up a dating profile on company time, Wong appears and the two discuss his issue with Donnie Blaze. It's revealed that Blaze was once a student of the mystic arts, but was kicked out of Comertage for summoning 3 kegs and a former frat bro to the sanctum. As we've seen with recent multiverse-focused releases, sending people in and out of random dimensions can be really risky, which is why Wong is so eager to stop him. However, Jen struggles with how best to help him, since Wong and his students pledge themselves to a higher power, and the American justice system usually functions on getting things in writing. That night at Legal Ease, which honestly Jen should just send her paychecks directly to this place, because I think she spends more time at this bar than she does at her own apartment. While she's nursing a couple of drinks with Nikki, Jen is working on both Wong's cease and desist letter and also preparing Blonsky's parole brief. While she's doing that, she and Nikki are of course approached by a sleazy older man who claims that he hates seeing 2 stunning young women sitting all alone. And when he's brushed off, he claims he'll be waiting for the 2 sexy ladies at the bar to change their minds. Jen says guys like that are why she doesn't date, which, yeah, if I lived in a universe where every man was written that one-dimensionally and that sleazy, I think I'd stay single forever too. Nikki hassles her about her weak dating profile before she she starts swiping indiscriminately because it's a numbers game and, quote, hetero life is grim. Which, I mean, in the show's defense, I've seen enough weirdos on Bumble to not entirely disagree. After that lovely scene of canned dialogue and cringe, we see Jen and Wong trying to serve Donnie Blaze his cease and desist. Scenes that Wong is featured in always make me wonder how the heck this guy became Sorcerer Supreme. He acts super immaturely this entire time. He broke Emil Blonsky out of prison and never really explained himself. Who is it that put this guy in power? Because this all seems very off the books. Whatever. The next time we see Jen, she's on a terrible date with a self-professed entrepreneur who not only is ignoring everything she's saying, but he also sticks her with the check and lets her overhear a conversation over the phone where he says that she's maybe a 6. I feel like this show is kind of taking us back to like 2009 with all these numerical ratings assigned to people. I haven't really heard people call anybody a solid 8 or a solid 6 in years. Maybe I'm wrong? Let me know. Anyways, Jen and Wong finally face off against Donnie Blaze in court. And as a witness to Donnie Blaze's magical crime, Wong summons Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y, but it's not where you think. We come to find that this woman is apparently never without a drink in her hand and always half-past tipsy. Which raises the question, in what world does testimony from somebody who is obviously inebriated count in a court of law? I don't want to look too far into this, but I'm going to. These people have no idea how to write anything that would ever happen in a courtroom. Her inexplicably valid testimony about portal jumping being both spooky and fun basically backfires on Jen and Wong, and results in the judge deciding that she's gonna review the motion and that Donnie Blaze can continue to practice magic until she's reached her decision. That evening in her apartment, Jen is spending yet another Friday night alone. This episode is really making it a point to stress the single 30-something aspect of the synopsis. She decides to take Nikki's advice and makes a dating profile as She-Hulk instead of Jen, and that profile gets tons of matches immediately. We're treated to a montage of terrible dates that Jen goes on, in which one guy actually calls her a specimen, and Jen breaks the fourth wall to ask the audience if there's anything as bad as dating in your 30s. The last guy, however, is handsome and normal enough that Jen decides to take him back to her apartment. We cut to yet another Donnie Blaze show in which another volunteer actually refuses to go through the portal. Instead, to dazzle the audience, he summons some creatures that look like Grogu on meth. That's Baby Yoda for you non-Star Wars fanatics. And they basically take over the theater and start attacking the audience. So Donnie is desperate enough to open a portal and beg Wong for help. At Jen's place, the date seems to be going even better. Her date is now in a tank top showing off his muscles after a conveniently spilled glass of wine. Only the mood is interrupted by Wong as he appears in a portal asking Jen for help. She steps through to help him get rid of the little creatures, the entire time complaining about her date being cut short. She and Wong make relatively quick work of the little buggers, and once she's gotten Donnie to agree to her cease and desist, she steps back through the portal to finish her date. Things seem to be going pretty well because she scoops him up in her arms and carries him bridal style off to her room for some fun. In the morning, a very smiley Jen, now in her human form, is making breakfast. Only her really good mood is ruined because her date comes out and doesn't recognize her. When she explains that this is her human form, he is visibly disappointed and annoyed and leaves her with the entire breakfast she made by herself. She's understandably disappointed, but I also have to wonder, is that kind of catfishing? Interesting questions worth contemplating. Anyways, with this show's impeccably comedic timing, she's immediately served with documents that say Titania is actually suing her. She's trademarked the name She-Hulk before Jen could, and so she's taking her to court over it. The episode ends here. Our end credits scene features Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y, but it's not where you think, and her new pal Wongers discussing what kind of alcohol they do and don't like. This is the 4th episode of this 9-episode series, and I still cannot get into it. The courtroom aspect of a show about a lawyer is complete nonsense. Every plot point and all the dialogue feels like it's being written by middle schoolers, and it's just not good TV, Marvel or otherwise. This episode was just a slight improvement over last week's in my opinion, and I can say one really good thing about this show is that it's really consistent at being disappointing disappointing and annoying. Like I said, I rate this episode a 4 out of 10. I doubt this Titania storyline is going anywhere relevant because that is basically the theme of this show. That's all from me. I've been Snarky J. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on episode 4 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law in the comments below.